Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this regularly scheduled board meeting for the Ventura Unified School District. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Dr. Castro, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Just a slight amendment. There was a misprint on conference item 16A, so please omit the terms first reading because it is a conference item. Thank you.
Great, thank you. With that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
I see no public comments on closed session items. With that, we will go to closed session to discuss public employee discipline dismissal release and public employee appointment regarding the Director for Fiscal Services. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Great. The board is adjourned until 7 p.m. Thank you. Hi, good evening, and thank you for joining us at this regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting for Ventura Unified School District. My name is Sabrina Rodriguez, and I currently serve as board president. The board has just returned from closed session, and we are resuming our meeting. So if you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Dawn, would you please take roll?
I'd be happy to. President Sabrina Rodriguez.
Here.
Vice President Dr. Jerry Dannenberg.
Here.
Trustee Miss Amy Callahan is absent this evening. Trustee Mr. Calvin Peterson.
Here.
And Trustee Mr. James Forsythe.
Here.
And Superintendent Dr. Antonio Castro.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned, the board has just returned from closed session, and we did take action in closed session on one item. In closed session, the board took action to approve the employment of Ms. Sonia Magana as the Director of Fiscal Services. The motion was made by Mr. Peterson and seconded by me, and the vote was unanimous in support of her nomination. The board will bring back Ms. Magana to present to the public at a future date, but please join me in congratulating her on this move, and we look forward to working with her in the future. Good news, Dr. Castro.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. Before we move on to our other item, I just wanted to take this opportunity that's in the time between when the school year ended and today. Sadie Engelhardt, among her many other accolades that she's continued to accumulate, she was recently named the 22-23 Gatorade California Girls Track and Field Player of the Year, and also simultaneously the 22-23 Player of the Year for Girls Cross Country. She's a remarkable athlete and also just a remarkable person. I didn't want to lose the opportunity to express our gratitude for her and what she does and the way that she represents our district and Ventura High School. Thank you very much. That's all I have to report.
Great, thank you. Correspondence, the board should have received a copy of our external financial audit correspondence from our auditors who were here. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. That's true. That was me. He did his good news and I missed that. Okay. So before I get to the audit report, we also have some good news to celebrate tonight. I wanted to have a chance to bring up Miss Vanessa Contreras. Hello. Last month, the board took action to appoint Ms. Contreras as the new principal of E.P. Foster Elementary School, and we're so excited to have you here. Before you speak, I just want to read a little bit about you from your bio. Ms. Contreras comes to this principal role with over 15 years of experience in education. She began her career as a substitute teacher in Oxnard Union High School District in 2006. In 2009, she began working as a school counselor. She then transferred to an elementary school in 2013, where she taught transitional kindergarten and kindergarten for 7 years. In 2020, she became an elementary school counselor at Newhall Elementary School and then later at Will Rogers Elementary School, starting in 2021. This summer, she is serving as the summer school principal for the Expanded Learning Program. She served as the teacher in charge, facilitated student success team meetings, worked with positive behavior interventions and supports, and has been a presenter at the school site English Language Advisory Committee and District English Language Advisory Committee meetings. She has extensive experience in elementary school and is bilingual in both English and Spanish. Ms. Contreras' inclusive, compassionate, dedicated, and equity-driven leadership skills will assist her in leading E.P. Foster Elementary School as the principal. Her exemplary qualities include exceptional communication and collaboration skills, visibility, and strong instructional knowledge to ensure access for all students. In addition, she focuses on providing a safe learning environment where students are engaged and empowered. her ability to build strong relationships, use data to identify and address equity gaps, and her passion for serving students, families, and staff will assist her in succeeding in this new role. The committee and I believe Ms. Contreras will be an excellent addition to the EP Foster team, and we're very excited to welcome you here today.
Good evening. It is both an honor and a privilege to be entrusted with the EP Foster community. A special thank you to Gina Wolowitz and Dr. Castro for their confidence in me. I had an opportunity to visit recently and meet with the office manager and the staff, and I'm very excited to begin. Thank you all again.
Thank you for being here. And board members, did you want to share anything?
Just congratulations and thank you for staying with us. EP Foster is such a special school, such a wonderful school, and I couldn't think of anybody better for that particular assignment. And I just want to point out, it seems that there's a lot of kindergarten teachers that become principals, and that's an interesting thing. I just want to point that out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you for being with us. And I see this district going in positive ways, and people like you are the reason. So I'm excited to have you continue our onward and upward stride. Thank you.
Thank you.
I, too, would like to congratulate you. Do you have any family with you here tonight?
Actually, I would love to introduce my family, but my husband's also an educator. He's a high school teacher, and summer's for camping. So he took our children camping. They're getting ready to make s'mores, so they wish they could be here, but they're very proud of me as well as my parents. I wouldn't be here without them.
Well, again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And just on a personal note, it was so wonderful visiting your space at Will Rogers and seeing the work that you were doing there to build community and to engage with our students at a time when so many of them have had personal struggles. And I think you bringing those skills to the community at EP Foster is just going to be such a win for everyone. So really grateful that you stepped up to this role and look forward to working with you in the year ahead.
Thank you.
I know we've had a lot of time to get to know one another. We're looking forward to what you're bringing to the principalship. As the president read, that your background in counseling is, I think, going to be really advantageous to it, and we're really looking forward to the way that the humility that you bring to this position. It's well respected and well appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, item 12A, the external financial audit correspondence. Mr. Mirza.
Yes, good evening, Board. So this is a requirement for our upcoming current fiscal year, 2022-2023 fiscal year that just closed. Our auditor is starting the auditing process. And so they're currently engaged in, monitoring attendance records and going through all of our internal checks and balances and controls. So this is a year-long process, and then we're hoping to be done by September. So this is just a requirement that they have to notify the board.
Great, thank you very much. That brings us to public comments. So I currently have 7 public comments. Ms. Quiros.
Thank you and good evening. You will have 3 minutes to speak this evening. I will give you a 30-second warning, and the timer will indicate when time is up. The governing board recognizes the impact that civility has in the effective operation of the district, including its role in creating a safe and positive school climate, enabling a focus on student well-being, learning, and achievement. The board believes that each person should be treated with dignity and respect in their interactions within the school community. The board understands that the First Amendment provides strong protection for speech. However, the board expects that all speech and expression will conform with the norms of civil behavior on district grounds, in district facilities, during district activities, meetings, and events, and in the use of district electronic and digital systems and platforms. Please remember that this meeting is being live streamed, and we do have students that attend and watch our meetings, so please keep your language as respectful as possible. President Rodriguez, if you'll call the first speaker.
Thank you. And what I'll do is I'll call the first speaker, and then I'll give you the next two speakers a little heads up that they're coming. So I have Anthony Ventura first, followed by Jackson Toro, followed by Stephen Weed. And for those of you who are new to public comment, the board is not allowed to respond, but we do often take notes. So if we're not looking at you, it's just because we're writing.
Good evening, public and the trustees and staff. I just wanted to come on and be able to speak just for a few minutes and just on behalf of the Carpenters and be able to tell you guys that we're very proud that you guys are moving forward with the bond issue, and I know that you're going to have study sessions, and we look forward to being able to engage in those and be able to hear our perspective on how CWAs improve the community, how they benefit local hire, and actually how they just enrich the community in general. So that's all I wanted to say, just real quick, short few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackson Toro, followed by Stephen Weed, followed by is it Mandy Jubb? Jacob, thank you, sorry.
I just wanted to say that it's a little hard hearing you guys out there. Is there any possibility you can turn up the volume just a little bit more so we could hear you better out there? Would that be possible? Okay, thank you. I'm here to speak tonight about the Washington School. This school is right across the street from my house on McMillan Avenue, and I've lived there for the past 48 years, so I've seen it when it was originally the county school, and then it was nothing for a long time, and then VCCS came in. And I just want to say that there's a lot of, I'm not here to, actually I'm here to just see if there's some way that we could all work together, maybe reframe. There's a lot of comments coming out of all different sides about this piece of property. I'm just trying to get a better bite on what's going on here. We see all of these older schools around different cities, Carpinteria, Montecito, Fillmore, Santa Paula. They're being used on a regular basis, and this one is being evicted for reasons that I'm not entirely sure are actually accurate. The streets in the area, if there's going to be a redevelopment there, if that was a building is torn down and there's going to be a redevelopment, there's going to be problems there. The streets are from 1920s. The amount of cars that they can hold right now, it's pretty much limited as it is right now, so it would make it even harder, plus there'll be other problems too. If you have a few hundred or 300 or 400 cars coming in, you can imagine what it's going to be like in the morning when everybody has to come out of there. So it's going to be gridlock, we know that. Last time the school was empty, it was vandalized very quickly by the homeless, drug addicts. There was prostitutes back there. Fire was even started there, so we know what's going to happen. The handwriting's on the wall already, so that's the reason why we feel as though that the building should be preserved. I was in there the other day, just on a personal note, on the very last day, and I have to tell you something. It's a heartbreaking thing to see kids' handprints on the wall, and they've done such a good job. Everybody works together so well there. And as a neighbor, they were very respectful, and we really, really liked having them there too. So it was really nice, but it was sort of like seeing grandparents being torn away from their kids. It really felt like that. It was a really sad day over there. So I'd like to see if there's some way that possibly, I heard that the school was restricted from purchasing the property. I'd like to have some more clarification on that too, understand why that the school couldn't be included in that. So I think we could do a better job than this if we work
30
together.
seconds.
And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have Stephen Weed, followed by Mandy Jacob, followed by Dee Dee Beeman.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Castro, Dr. Bayless, and staff. I haven't met any of you until now. My name is Stephen Weed, and I live in Oakview. My youngest is Jeremy, and he'll be graduating next year from El Camino. I also substitute throughout the district, and I love it. I wanted to brief you tonight on the benefits of a supplemental set of lessons that's available for the freshman health classes and ask for your support. Last spring, I had the opportunity to present a curriculum that was approved by the California Department of Education to 16 freshman classes in another district. It was created by Donate Life of California, and I'm a volunteer with their local affiliate known as One Legacy. The curriculum introduces the need and the opportunity to be an organ donor, and so much more. Here are the benefits. When myself or some other volunteer has the opportunity to actually present in class, it's a totally different experience. Students have a chance to learn outside the book, so to speak. One Legacy volunteers are either family members of someone who has donated organ and tissue, or transplant recipients like myself. This makes health real to the students. Secondly, it also provides an opportunity to reinforce the function of organs and tissue and tie body systems together. So as an example, when I present, I talk about the kidneys and what they do and how their function is related to the circulatory system and the endocrine system. And that really reinforces what's being taught in the classroom. Like I said, I'm a kidney transplant recipient, and this really makes it real to students. Talking about transplantation also provides information to students who may have family members with diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, fatty liver disease, and so forth. All of these diseases could lead to the need for a transplant. In my experience, there's usually 1 or 2 students in every class of 25 or 30 that has been affected by these diseases. And that makes sense because we're in Ventura, and all of the diseases are especially high in the Latino and Black populations. So, as a result, when a One Legacy volunteer shows up in the classroom, their curriculum provides a social and emotional learning experience like no other. So, I'm asking for your support in the fall to have myself and other volunteers for One Legacy present. And as I mentioned, I'll follow up with you on this later. Obviously, the teachers have to invite us into the classroom. We're not trying to commandeer anything. But I'd like your support. People like Karen Shear, who is assistant principal at Ventura, is also on the board at Oxnard, and her support allowed us to do presentations there this spring. So thank you again for your time, staff.
I'm sorry, Mr. Reed, may I just, you mentioned at the beginning, did you say this was state approved curriculum? Okay, thank you.
You know, when I send out the email, I'll send you a link to the state curriculum. It's currently being revised. It's about 13 years old, and, well, you know,
okay.
We have Canvas, we have a bunch of other things, and details have changed. So,
sorry, I just needed an answer to that one question. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not on. Ms. Jacob, followed by Dee Dee Beeman, followed by Ellen Henderson.
Can I? Yeah. Okay. Hi, my name's Mandy Jacob. I actually remember your faces for the think tank that you had about why the school enrollment had gone down. And we had different parents talking about that. And so today I'm here to talk about the Washington School, and just the two concepts together are juxtaposed. If you're battling to get kids into schools because you are losing them to homeschooling, why are you going to close a school that is thriving? That just blows my mind. And the second thing is, you're called Ventura Unified School District. Why would you close a school to give it to a commercial real estate developer? That's another question. I mean, do you even legally, have you spoken to lawyers, do you even legally have the right to close down a school to give it to a commercial or any kind of real estate developer that's not going to do, I mean, surely your mission is school driven. I'm standing here going, how does this even make sense? So all I'm just asking is for that you make sense. You've only had one resident come and speak to you, and I know the VC Star has been very dependent on holding in the information, but as soon as this becomes public knowledge, I don't think you're going to get beautifully spoken people like that coming up. They're going to be very angry. He said 200 schools, 500 apartments. you times that by 2, that's 1,000 cars in that district. I don't think you guys have had like a financial analysis, a legal analysis. This is something that the city hall should be dealing with. A school board needs to drive people to school, and that you're closing the school just blows my mind. So please think about it, because there probably are going to be legal consequences besides you having an uproar from your residents. Just make the right choice.
Thank you. Ms. Beeman, followed by Ms. Henderson, followed by Erica Santoro.
Again, this is going to be regarding the Washington School. This is questions. And why was the Ventura County Christian School never given the opportunity to purchase this, since it's going to obviously go to a commercial entity? The Goyas, who've been pouring money into the school out of their own funding, will any of the $5 million that they put in be returned to them? Why did you, the Ventura Unified School District, wait 3 days before the school was supposed to start and then claim the building was unsafe? The enrollment was at an all-time low, and we just wonder why the timing was such. Why would Ventura Unified School District come to the table? Why wouldn't you come to the table is a better question. Why wouldn't you come to the table when their lawyer offered an olive branch to prove the building was indeed safe? Another question. Your superintendent of finances, who cashed the first 2 checks of the new lease agreement, where did she go? Because this would have proven that the new lease agreement was legal in court. In the settlement, why were they forced, VCCS, Ventura County Christian School, why was a gag order placed against any of them or the staff from speaking out when, and they both sides understood they were not supposed to discuss the settlement publicly. So that was a given. And yet, in the Ventura County Star, the details of the settlement was reported the next day. It cast this school board, this school district, in a good light, like they were the good guys, and left out details that would have balanced the story. So I'm with the 2 people that already spoken about this. The impact on the community, it stuns me that, having worked in education for well over 25 years, that a school board would go and close down a school that's actually a historical building that can be preserved as a historical building. And yet, the Ventura County Christian School, they were told they couldn't go through with that procedure of trying to get it preserved as a historical building in our community. And if anybody's gone and looked or been in it, thank you. This is amazing. The school and the property are amazing. And I would think all of you who are in education and are educators, you would want that environment for your children.
Time's up.
Ms. Henderson, followed by Ms. Santoro. Okay, so Ms. Santoro.
I can give you a copy of the questions. I didn't go into detail, but there's.
Oh, there's. Ms. Henderson, you're up. Thank you. Ms. Henderson, you're up, and you have 3 minutes.
Parked over there. My name's Ellen Henderson. I've been a resident in Ventura over 10 years. I'm a small business owner, and a single mom of 2 children. I first want to commend you all for doing such an important job, one where important decisions must be made daily. I won't pretend to know what it entails, just want to say thanks for stepping into the position when many wouldn't. I am here tonight to contend for what's true and right. Every single person employed with VUSD from top to bottom is first a California public employee. This means you work for the good of the public as we pay your salaries and our voices matter. Over the past 2 years, I've had the privilege to stand firm in faith with VCCS as negotiations for new leases were being drawn up, signed, and released. That said, I know the other side of the story. Much of what's actually taken place hasn't been reported in VC Star or released for public knowledge. I'd like to shine light on some facts the community may not be aware of. Prior to VCCS taking over Washington School in 1999, it was a neighborhood eyesore run down with drugs, prostitutes, break-ins. Prior to COVID and VUSD enrollment plummeting, VCCS had a great relationship with VUSD. They visited regularly and never had anything negative to say about the improvements that were being made. When enrollment went record low nationwide for VUSD, that's when things started to change. The VCCS 20-year lease ended October 2019, which they were given a 2-year extension. They had asked for 10. June 2021, negotiations began for a new lease. VUSD accused VCCS of having a breach of contract. In the original lease, it was agreed that VCCS did not have to pay rent or utilities once they had put in a certain amount of their own money to improve the building. Over the 20 years, they put $5 million of their own money into the maintenance and management of Washington School. They were told verbally they would one day have the opportunity to purchase it. And to date, they have not been offered the property to purchase,
30
even
seconds.
after asking multiple times. Let me skip to, on August 17th, 2022, 3 days before school was supposed to start, VUSD called a meeting with VCCS to say they were not permitted to start school because of building safety. An architect they hired signed off on this. VCCS had the structural engineer come out and deemed it completely safe, safer than most new structures in the city. In another article, although VCC reported it true, there was no non-discrimination equal opportunity clause in the original 20-year lease.
Thank you.
Time is up. Thank you.
Ms. Santoro?
I'm here to talk about Washington School also. A little bit of a different slant. I hear that there's going to be affordable housing. That's the plan. So I'm wondering, there's $1 million condos on Main Street. We're close to the ocean. Lots of buildings with ocean views. And going online, I found out that a lot of these affordable houses get turned into expensive condos down the line, and the people have to move again. Things like that happen. So I feel like this is not just any blank piece of land or rundown motel. This is a special piece of property. It's got a nice little green lawn, and it could be used for multiple things in the future for our children. So I just think you should do it right the first time. Instead of building, ruining a beautiful piece of property, something that's part of our heritage, to maybe find a different area for these houses that we really need. We need this low-income housing. But this is special property. There's our hearts are, attached. A lot of history. So I'm hoping that we can put it on the National Register one day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. And I will just say, on behalf of the board, we do appreciate hearing from you and are always open to hearing from you outside of our meetings. The public comment doesn't allow us to respond, but you're always able to email or reach out to any of us to communicate if that's what you'd like to do. So I know I speak for my colleagues when I say we're always happy to meet with the community and hear your concerns. And so please know that this is not the only place you can talk to us. Thank you, and we will resume the rest of our agenda. So item 14A, consideration of approval for the draft 24-25 school year calendar. This is a first read.
Hi, good evening. So I bring forward to the board today a calendar for the 24-25 school year. So to be clear, we already have the calendar for the upcoming school year. So this is for the following year out, beginning in August of 2024, to the board for consideration for approval.
Do we have it to put up or no? Sorry. Yeah, it's impossible to read from a distance, but.
While we're pulling it up, I will share that there is a 1-week shift to the start date and the end date for 24-25.
Let's just, while you're doing that, board, do you have any questions or comments about the calendar?
I had a question. So it's 1 week shift to an earlier start time, it seems. And then we get out, it looks like June 5th. Okay.
Correct.
So does this, obviously this is district-wide, is this helpful for any particular grade, any particular, can you discuss that a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this 1-week shift would allow for secondary schools to end the first semester prior to winter break, to allow students and staff to have that time to rest and rejuvenate during the winter break with the semester being completed.
Okay, so that's like giving those students that unit of education between winter break. Yeah, that's important. And from my understanding in prior conversations is that with other individuals is that a lot of students have been working during that time. During that winter break, and so they don't feel like they have that winter break, essentially. Okay.
Dr. Bayless, if you could, thank you.
Yeah, Trustee Forsyth, I just wanted to add that there are some other advantages to this kind of a schedule, and first, I think it conforms in general to where we see a lot of districts moving. It actually conforms more closely to what the majority of districts are doing in our county even. It puts more instructional time before, for high school kids for AP exams. So then it has less instructional time after AP exams. It has more instructional time. It shifts a week more instructional time for CASP, CAST, all the SBAC exams. So from an assessment standpoint about those windows don't change per the state. AP exams exist in early May every year. The CASP window remains what it is, but it moves the instructional minutes forward in time. So 1 week more of instructional time prior.
And just for, can you explain CASP?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Talking about our state mandated assessments in English and math, and in certain grades science. So they occur through many of our grade levels. Not every grade level has a required end of year test, and I'm happy to go into further depth, but I apologize for using an acronym.
Yeah, it's just for the. No, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jerry?
No, just, it is something that you have negotiated with our union. So with that being said, if there are no other questions, I'll move approval.
I have questions. So I understand the advantages to this. Can you talk a little bit about some of the disadvantages to this shift?
So one of the things with the change in the schedule, we want to ensure that we're communicating with our families and our community partners to ensure that families have an opportunity so they know that there is this change, so they're not surprised by it, so that they can plan accordingly. And so that's one thing that we would be working towards, so that families you know, who may be typically used to, you know, the week differential, that they won't be surprised by that.
I'll add that I think that there, when in the 1 year you make the change, there's 1 fewer weeks of summer for students and staff, and that would occur just in that first year of the change. I think I've also heard and have considered myself the longer the time between when we start summer school, which is in early July, and when students get out, sometimes it's harder to bring them back to summer school. So that could be one potential disadvantage of ending earlier in the year when we have a required, we can't really start summer school prior to July with our partners, Learn for Life partners that we organize our summer school with. I'm sure I could probably think of a couple more, but I would say instructionally, I think that there are the benefits that I outlined there, and then those other disadvantages related to summer school, potentially.
And Dr. Bayless, not that it addresses the question about like detractions or weaknesses, but you were really specific when you talked about summer school, but we also have ELOP. So can you draw some distinctions between those two?
Sure.
Thank you.
So ELOP, our extended learning opportunity program that we run after school for grades K through 6 throughout the year and during summer for those same grades. So when I say summer school, I'm really talking about high school credit recovery or initial credit. But we do, of course, have the ability to run extended learning programs in June, as we did this year, and as well as our extended school year for special education. So what we would be doing is we'd be working with our ELOP wing to make sure that we're offering all the ELOP programs that we would typically do in June for the longer time in June. So I don't know if I addressed your question. Yeah.
So the other question I had is, could you compare how this vote went in terms of for and against to a traditional vote on calendar?
I don't have those details with me at this moment of the exact percentages for both of the partners. I just know that I spoke to VUA and to VESPA, and they said it both passed, but I don't have their percentages.
So my understanding is with VUA, it passed at 53%, which is significantly lower than a normal calendar passes. And I don't, so for my purposes, I don't have any issue with the calendar, but I do think I have concerns about the process, right? Because I think when we make a significant change, we have the right to negotiate the process and to make a change, but we don't have a process where families have a chance to weigh in on any proposed changes, right? And if we were, say, getting rid of fall break, if we negotiated that and we were getting rid of it, families would have very strong feelings about that. And yet we don't have a way for them to weigh in or in any way provide feedback to that process. So my concern is more about the process of making a significant change than it is about the particular change, right? Like, I understand the advantages, particularly for our secondary students, in having the term end before the Christmas break. There has been a lot of chatter about the way that this impacts elementary school staff differently than it impacts high school staff. And not being a teacher, I don't particularly have an opinion about that, but I have just been listening to the feedback. But I do have concerns about a process where families don't have an opportunity to weigh in when we make significant changes, right? Like if it's the 2-day, the two President's Day weekends versus the one President's Day weekend, it always confuses people, but they get used to it. I'm more concerned about making these kind of shifts without an opportunity for families to weigh in.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. They brought up a lot, so let's segment it. Marianne, since you have the screen up, can you zoom in on October? You can't? Okay. Well then, Gina, what I'll do is pass it over to you to describe, because I understand what you were saying. Hypothetically, if we were to be removing fall break, we would want parent feedback. We are not in any way suggesting that fall break is being removed. So if you can just go through that portion, and then we'll segment the rest of it.
Did you see my eyebrows go up when President Rodriguez said that? I was going to clarify that as well. Yes, this calendar does still include fall break.
Okay, so that's that. I just want to make sure super clear. We retain fall break. Next thing is we'll do two parts. One is what the level of engagement was with our associations. Again, to the President Rodriguez's point, we don't control the votes, but can you talk about the level of engagement as it has been typical in the past when we've gone through the calendar approval process?
So yeah, in general with the associations, what's a typical pass rate, or?
No, because you already established that we don't have comparative data between pass rates of previous calendars and this one. If you can talk about the process, like when we meet to join to talk about approving the process, how did that process go this year?
Sure. So I will do my best to answer the question, and you let me know if I successfully completed it or not. Yeah, so when we were engaging in the conversations in early to mid-spring with the associations, they have their own processes where they reach out to their representatives and their members to get their feedback on the process. They have their own internal committees in each of the associations, and then we have a long-standing tradition of bringing representatives from both associations as well as with district staff to come together and look at other calendars within the county, what are the trends, and discuss those pros and cons through that process. And so I know that both VESPA and VUA had those processes within their associations during this calendar creation.
Great. Okay. Ms. Crouch, anything you want to add to that? Because there's one more segment to that. Go ahead.
Well, I have a question in this type of rule.
Sure.
Do we, if we're talking about bringing the community in to make a decision, if we're making an educational decision where it's better for the kids, if we did bring in the community, what are we asking them? Are we asking them, do they think this is better for the kids in learning, or are we asking them, do they rather go to vacation on it? And I think if we did that, I think it would be convoluted, where I think we're making an educational decision, right? So that this is better for the students doing it this way.
Trustee Peterson, that is the next segment that I want to get into, which is like the process by which we would or would not get parent engagement, and that's a contracted part. So I want to set that aside just momentarily, but that's exactly where we're going next. Ms. Crouch, is there anything you want to add in terms of the process that was followed this year that might have been different than in previous years?
No, I think Ms. Wolowitz, she explained the process that we went through this year, and that has been typically followed, at least in the last 9 years that I've been with the district.
Thank you. I think that's important to note, that the process looked the same as it had in previous years, even though the vote totals may have differed. To the last segment after this, which relates to the degree to which in some of these processes where there is explicit avenues for parent engagement. And what I'm going to ask staff to do is to talk about like the contract and like where in there are or are not. So I'll lead with, so for example, in the contract in site-based decision making, there are things, as you said, that are educationally related, educationally relevant, have tremendous impact on staff and students and families, but we follow the process that's defined in the contract. So like for site-based decision making and bell schedules is just one example. So Ms. Wolowitz, if you can add to that.
Yeah, and so anytime we do changes like that, bell schedules, there are specific negotiated items within the contract, as well as this is, the calendar committee is delineated within the contract as well for the process.
Can I just ask, though, for clarification a little bit on that? Because I seem to remember when we did the bell schedule shift at Buena a few years ago when we were having that conversation, we explicitly did do a survey for students and parents to ask what their opinions were, even though it's a negotiated item. And I could be misremembering, so clarify, please, if I'm misremembering. But although it's a negotiated item, we did ask for their feedback on what they preferred.
So there is a portion of that site-based decision-making that is inclusive of the school site council. And so each school site council discusses any changes. That's one of the first steps. And so that may have been part of that process through school site council.
The survey to all of staff, all the parents and students.
That's not been my understanding. That's not what's delineating the contract. It's just the school site council signing off on the proposal. That may have been a feature, but it certainly would have been extra contractual.
The procedure as delineated in the contract is for it to go to a school site council and to have the vote take place there after a discussion with initially with the site.
So Jerry has made a motion, and for the record, I don't have a problem supporting this, only because, although I have, again, I feel like it would be great to get feedback from families before doing that. Essentially, our associations have already approved this, so the board doesn't really have any opportunity to not approve it, is my personal perspective, because it would mean reopening all negotiations, and that's not reasonable. But I do hope that as we look at these things moving forward, that we will take into consideration family feedback, because in an environment of declining enrollment, not listening to our customers, I do not believe is in our best interest. So with that, I will second Dr. Dannenberg's motion.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Item 14B, substitute teacher incentive rate. This is a first read. Ms. Wallowitz.
Thank you. So apologize, not used to having it's not like me to have back-to-back agenda items. Greg's elbowing me over here. So this is, last year the board approved to raise the rate to 200, which is commensurate with in the county for what we have knowledge of at this moment. As we know that there's many other boards across the county that are making these decisions as well. But something that was highly effective in our ability to have a more significant fill rate this year was creating an incentive that once teachers worked substitute teachers worked 10 consecutive days, that they got an incentive rate of $225. Several of our substitutes towards the end of the year asked if that would be continuing before they agreed to sign on, and so I'm bringing it back to the board for approval. At that time we approved it just for the 1 year so that we can reconvene and see whether it was effective or not. And so I'm bringing it back for your consideration to be implemented for the upcoming school year.
No questions.
No questions.
How did that help us in retaining and keeping substitute employees?
I anticipated that you might ask. It had a great impact last year in June compared to today. Last year we had 211 effective substitutes. Today we have 308. So it is having quite a significant impact, and we've hired we hired last school year 134, and we've only had 30 resignations. So our retention rate was fairly high as well.
So would this then become essentially a permanent increase, or are you seeking a 1-year increase on this as well?
Continued at this point for a 1-year increase and reevaluate it, but open to other thoughts.
then I guess I think part of the thinking for me in something like this is that, as we've increased our staff's pay rates, like this is a way for this to keep pace with that as well, so that those, we have retired teachers and other members of our educational community who come back and sub for us. It kind of helps them take the benefit of some of the salary increases that we've seen over this last year. So thank you for the information. I appreciate it. Do I have a motion, or would you like to have this brought back?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Great. Consideration of Resolution 2320, authorizing an agreement for HVAC energy conservation services and delegating authority to take related actions. This is a first read. Mr. Mirza.
Yeah, good evening, Board. We have our Facilities Director, Terry Allison, to discuss in further detail the resolution of the CalShapes. In a nutshell, CalShapes is a program that was a grant out there by the state that allowed us to do upgrades and maintenance to our HVAC and our plumbing. So this would be specifically for the HVAC energy conservation. Terry and her team put out the RFP process. It was a panel that once the RFP responses were reviewed, they decided on which vendor would be the best for the district, and that's what this resolution is doing, is authorizing that contract to assist us in our HVAC upgrades. Good.
Great summary, thank you. Yeah, we have a couple of slides here tonight just to do a quick review. I know we've been talking about CalShapes grants for some time now. We applied for 4 separate grants and we were awarded them. We've approximately $7.2 million. Tonight we are only talking about the ventilation portion here. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. And just a quick little review of the procurement process that we were recommending for this. Since this was grant awarded and the contract would stipulate that the contractor would work within the confines of the grant amount, we felt that 4217 was appropriate for this use, which basically means that the energy cost savings of the project will pay for any of the cost of the project as a whole. And within the parameters of 4217 allows us to go out for a request for qualification or RFP process. And I know Mr. Mirza explained some of what we went through on that just a little bit ago. And then finally, just a quick summary of our process to date, which was following the 4217 guidelines. We put out a request for qualifications, we received our packages, and we convened a panel of interviewers made up of district personnel as well as our outside consultants. And then we came to a conclusion on the best qualified contractor to work for Ventura Unified. And we're recommending that Empowered Solutions or Verigy be awarded this contract for the ventilation portion of the CalShapes grants. On June 6th, we noticed the hearing. On June 27th, at our last board meeting, we actually conducted the hearing. And tonight, we're hoping to see a adoption of the resolution 2320 for the contract.
Board members, do you have any questions? Oh, sorry. There we go. Do we know anything about their labor force and where it comes from? Are they local?
They do reach out to local contractors for proposals on the work. So they do have relationships with the local contractors. And they are made up of a combination of union and non-union laborers.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question. So, thank you. Any other questions?
In the union, non-union, do they list a percentage that they try to hit? I know I've been reading, about some contracts where they say our target is 53% union, 60% union. In the contract, is there a percentage that they mention, or?
There is not a percentage mentioned, no. Yeah.
So another important note, just to, this vendor would not exceed the cost wouldn't exceed the grant amount.
That's correct,
awarded to
yes.
us by the state.
Yeah.
Any other questions? This is a first read, so do we want to bring it back, or does someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. Item 14D, emergency treatment use of naloxone, hydrochloride, Narcan, or another opioid antagonist. This is a first read policy change.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it says Mr. Mirza, but I'm going to assume.
I will partner, but I will lead with Mr. Mirza. Yeah, if you recall from the last board meeting, last regular scheduled board meeting, we had Director of Risk Management, Eric Reynolds, present and outline the steps that we would go through. And I don't have it here in front of you, but there was a slide that talked about what step we are at. And it's basically we're preparing for a discovery call in preparation for implementing this if the board chose to move forward. And that discovery call is an implementation planning call with Ventura County Behavioral Health. And I'll just invite Marie Ann to pull up the...
Dr. Bayless, I think in this case it's public health, is it?
I'm sorry?
I think in this case it's public health.
What did I say?
Behavioral health.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Ventura County... Well, this says Ventura County Behavioral Health Overdose Prevention Program. But yes, I think that's the program.
Sense for one portion,
That's right.
but I do know they'll be seeking overall
Thank you.
public health. Yeah.
This is what you have here is the current board policy that is unhighlighted. The highlighted sections in green are the proposed additions, and I know it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll just walk you through really quickly what it says. In that first green section, it basically just calls out the California Education Code that allows districts to move forward. Oh, there it is. I'm happy to still summarize. It outlines how LEAs have the authority to designate, to call for volunteers to administer the emergency naloxone. And if you scroll down to the next green section, down there at the bottom, it outlines what a volunteer is, the training protocols required, and that those training standards would be established by the superintendent or designee. So this language added to the existing board policy with respect to what we already are authorized to do in terms of administering medication is what we're asking for your consideration of.
Questions?
No, I think it's great that we're expanding that, the administration of that medicine essentially to a volunteer or somebody who is trained. So that's a big win for us and for those who are going through that kind of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for going through the process because I think we're behind on this. So the sooner, in my opinion, the sooner we can implement it, the better.
So today I was at the Capital Advisors state budget review for Santa Barbara County, and one of the things they talk about, I shared the slides with the board, but one of the things they mentioned is that there's $3.5 million in the governor's budget specifically for doses, 2 per middle school and 2 or 3 per high school, but there were some requirements. It doesn't cover the training aspect, but it does cover the cost of the medication. So hopefully we can apply for those things as well. I know that the cost is not the biggest part of this, but I mean, it's free money, right? So might as well ask for it. But I think it's great, and thank you. I know I see Anne Marie back there. Thank you for the work on this. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we can get this in place. So, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Item 14E, request for approval of contracts exceeding $25,000. Mr. Mirza.
Yes, good evening, Board. So what you have in front of you is a list of contracts that we are seeking approval for. There's various different contracts, special ed related, transportation services, software renewals. So we brought this in front of you. You have the total amount, the funding source, and a slight justification on the side of what, a brief explanation of what it could be for. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please let us know.
I just want to say this is fantastic. So I know this has been a process, but when I pulled this up over the weekend, it's just so helpful to be able to see it all in one place. And of course, it generates lots of questions, right? Like the kinds of questions that we can send to the superintendent, like, so why are we spending blah, blah, right? But it's so good to have this information and to know these things. I really appreciate the work of business services on this. Any other questions specific to the contracts?
I guess it's just a quick question. It's a special ed question about the speech pathologist. We're having to source out that currently. Is that just something that's county-wide? Because I know that that's an issue, is finding qualified OT and speech pathologists. So I was wondering if that's a question for that.
It's a really rich question, so let's have Ms. Wolowitz go first, and then Neil, if you can go next. Thank you.
It has been an ongoing challenge. We have some staff in my office that have been there for quite some time that used to work with Dr. Dannenberg. And so that's been an ongoing challenge. That is one of our very hard to fill positions, which is why a few years ago we negotiated a different salary schedule for the SLPs, because it was such a very difficult position to fill.
I mean, across the board, it's a difficult position to fill. I think relatively, to answer the other part of your question, we're in a decent place. We have one contract. I know there's districts that staff their entire SLP workforce with contracts. So it's not something that we want to do. We want to hire in-house all the time, but the contract is not permanent. It's not for an entire year. So as soon as we're able to recruit somebody, we can give a 30-day notice on the contract and then move forward with our own staff.
I would just like to add also that we've been partnering with the special education department, and we've been going out and actively recruiting early in the year when people are finishing their programs and things like that. And we have a fast track process so that the second that an application hits us, we have a very short timeline for processing those and have prioritized hiring those positions because they are so competitive to fill.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My question was, do all school districts go through the county for transportation?
I can answer that also. I would say that it's the regular practice in our county to go through the county to transport to county schools. So this transportation here that you see on that line item is for students that live within Ventura's boundaries, so Ventura kids that are attending schools in the county. Otherwise, we use our own transportation.
So most school districts in the county, for when they go out of the school district, they pay this too, this $500,000.
Yeah, that's the general practice here.
And I know the counting process as well is that they bid this transportation service out to different vendors as well. So they're actively searching for a lower cost. Through our CBO meetings, that's one of the areas that we discuss is special ed transportation. And they bring up, hey, we're out for RFP, we're seeking new vendors to always try to get us the most competitive rates possible.
And how many students?
About 90.
You said about 90
about
students?
90 students. We always seek the possibility of trying to do this in-house, but it's just the logistics of it and the amount of bus drivers, it doesn't work out because there's students that need services that go many different areas.
Okay, thank you.
So again, do I have a motion or do we want, I don't think we want to bring these back, but so.
I do a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
And again, I know I'm saying this a bunch, but really appreciate this. I think it's, hopefully what you'll get out of this is more relevant questions. Because we're going to ask questions anyway. At least this way, we're asking questions on things that actually are on there. So hopefully, it's good for everyone.
Well, just real quick, I didn't see our DJ budget. Is that was?
Oh, I was missing that too. I was like, man, I wanted to talk about the DJ.
This brings us to conference items, and up first is the 2023 board meeting times conversation. Dr. Castro.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. This is pretty straightforward. We, over this last year, have been evaluating our start times, and we've been, when I say we, myself and Amy Dom, have confirmed with council that if the board were to choose to change the meeting times, we don't have any extraordinary responsibilities. We can inform the public, give them enough time, but essentially if the board were open to it, we could start at any time, starting as early as August if you wanted to begin the regular meeting time at 6 o'clock, and we would then have closed session starting at 4:30. It works for everyone who supports this process, and I know that you've all been responsive to Amy Dom in terms of your availability, so our entire board could avail themselves to these start times, although not directly related to the desire to move. Part of this relates to going so late into the night for all of you, obviously, but for staff as well. Finishing earlier and then getting to work on time the next day without being really all that exhausted. It's nice to be different rates of exhaustion. But this would enable a lot of things for us to be able to start fresh and maybe finish a little bit fresher, and then start the next day and then finish the week a little bit fresher as well.
Questions, comments?
So what you're asking is just what would be a suitable time, correct?
Well, if 6 o'clock
Yeah.
would be a suitable.
Oh, if 6 o'clock, yeah. At 4:30 would be closed session. Well, since I generally get off of work about 3:30, so that works perfectly for me.
Yeah, I think a earlier start time would be beneficial, and then just even talking about this, I think that we can do a lot of structural changes too to make it more efficient in that start time. So I'm in agreement with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to try to start earlier and get out earlier. And as Mr. Peterson was alluding, we're talking about structural changes to how we do some of our agenda stuff. So I think that might help as well.
And Mr. Breen, before you go, he made a really key point, is to start early, to end early. You know what I mean? So I think we do need to we need to really look at it to make sure we're not just starting early to end at the same time. To start early, to end early is the goal. So I just want to make sure we stay cognizant of that.
Come on, we get paid by the minute. It's,
I didn't know that. Okay.
I absolutely agree, and that starting early is better. I mean, mostly, although it's hard on all of us, it's particularly hard on staff. So appreciate the fact that we can make that accommodation. But also, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the fact that this board sees that and is willing to make the change, right? Because us going late is not new, but the fact that this board was willing to actually do something about it to make it different, both in changing to the one meeting a month kind of schedule that I think is more humane all the way around, but also starting earlier so that hopefully people can have more of a normal home life is great. So thank you all for being flexible. And then, as my colleagues have said, I think we can look at other ways that we can improve our process for our board meetings so that we can still continue to engage with the community and hear their concerns, but also have it flow more efficiently. I think that would be great as well. So maybe at an upcoming meeting we can have that conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing the consensus of the board that earlier start time will work. I'll work individually with the board presidents, and we'll discuss next steps, especially with our one-on-ones as we go to agenda setting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So item 16A, student cell phone and earbud policy and enforcement. And this is a conference item, not a first read. So, Dr. Bayless.
Yes, thank you, President Rodriguez. And yes, this is just a conference item. It's an update. It's an opportunity for the board to provide some important input on an initiative that we are preparing for the start of the coming school year. And I know that parents and teachers and administrators everywhere cringe when they think of young adults and teenagers and cell phones and earbuds. But we have an opportunity here to clarify our expectations, all for the purposes of improving learning environments and making the most out of instructional minutes, and really supporting peer-to-peer respect in the instructional space and supporting student-to-teacher respect in instructional spaces. And I'll start by saying that this really is, this initiative really has been prompted by collaboration with our associations. We heard from them quite directly recently that there's been an increase, and I've heard it as well from administrators. There's just been a post-COVID increase in the amount of challenges related to student cell phone and earbud use in class, taking away from instructional time. So just a thanks to our association partners for working with us on this initiative. So this, a little bit of background here. I think prior to being one-to-one district, there were certainly a lot of good arguments to be made about how cell phones could be used effectively in classrooms by students accessing digital curriculum. And there are always questions about that. Not every student had a cell phone. That's still true. Not every student has a cell phone. I'll say publicly that my own sons don't have them until they're 15 years old. But we are a one-to-one district now, and every student has an assigned and approved digital learning device on their person. So one example of a recent change that maybe we haven't really made peace with respect to being very clear and a little bit more blunt with respect to our cell phone policy rules. We have control over those devices. We don't have control when students access material online through their own cell service, et cetera, but that's another important feature of our one-to-one program. And again, as I mentioned before, we have that increase. And by the way, that increase is being noted worldwide. In fact, just read an article about how both Finland and the Netherlands are proposing banning cell phones from classrooms. The UK is also considering it, as is France. And even in national news here in the States, lots of proposals and considerations about how to really make sacred that instructional time. And decrease the amount of phone distractions that occur. So we're not saying that screen time is the problem. I know there's lots of conversations about screen time, but I think that we all know there's a fundamental difference between educational, instructional, meaningful screen time and distracted, I'm scrolling through YouTube shorts just to sedate myself kind of screen time, which has its place. But not all the time when you're on the couch, as I tell my kids. Okay. In general, what we hear
Dr.
from...
Bayless, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just go back to the last bullet points on there? Because I think, okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We did engage, and I have a little bit more on this later, we did engage parents on this. I asked every secondary administrative team to engage parents either through their school site councils or through their PTA, getting some feedback. And maybe not surprising, all parents were largely in agreement, yes, it's a problem, we support you. The one provision, of course, which is already in our board policy is that we want our students to have access to cell phones in cases of emergency, but that does not mean they should have earbuds in all the time when you're trying to teach, and that you have cell phones in their hands or in their pockets being checked every 10 seconds when you're trying to teach. So I do feel like we have broad parental support, and I can speak a little bit more about that specifically if you'd like. Okay, next slide. Unlike the last time I spoke here just a few minutes ago about requesting a board policy change, we already have board policy on this, as does every district, nonetheless there's still a struggle with it. We do have a board policy that this initiative is about clarifying and elevating the expectation, not about changing a policy. So I think that's important to note. So as it's noted here in yellow, it does already say that devices shall be turned off during instructional time. And that's the CSBA recommended board policy that applies for all of California. Again, many districts struggle with this, and we're no different, but we're hoping that we can, through this initiative, better enforce our current existing board policy. Next slide, Marianne, please. Again, I want to emphasize that the goal here is not at all to be confrontational, to be controlling. It is about trying to control what we can and what we have sort of a professional moral obligation to control, and that is the learning environment to maximize student instructional time. We need to do what we can to decrease distractions and conflicts along the way. So we have to design messaging for both parents and for students. And we have to, we're in the process of developing sort of a violation or an infraction protocol that would be very clear, publicized in advance in all students' handbooks, so that there's no surprises, and with the goal of minimizing the kind of conflicts that occur between students and primarily teachers who are trying to enforce the policy. So that really is the goal. Our focus with our messaging is about learning and learning environments and respect. I think that, again, there's a time and a place for everything, and since I keep bringing my own children up, why stop now? We're talking to him about what maturity is. It's time and place. There's a time and a place for earbuds. There's a time and a place for cell phones. And we just want to stand really firm and protect the sacredness of the instructional space and say it's not then. And I think that this connects with a lot of other SEL initiatives we have: impulse control, respecting peers, giving people respect, attention, people first as opposed to screens first. So that's sort of the ethos of this initiative. And again, really looking forward to your feedback on this. I'll go to the last slide, Marianne. I want to thank the outstanding art teacher, Nicole Raptoni at Buena High School, who's working with us. These are just a couple of early drafts that she's providing with us that you can see on the right. So again, the messaging that we're trying to have on the front end is very positive. It's focused on learning and respect. And then, of course, we do have sort of an infraction protocol that we will publicize and get. I'm doing that with our Director of Secondary Education, Bobby Powers, and all the secondary principals. But we did, during May and June, we reached out through the principals, all the parent groups, and we had a Google Doc where they input all of the feedback that they got from parents. And again, I'm just very pleased to report it's just across the board support. It almost felt like they wanted us to come into their homes and do it for them as well. But nonetheless, I'm pleased to report that, because I know that's an important feature of what you've already talked about that parent outreach. So, so again, thanks to Nicole for working on us. Thanks to our principals who are working with us, and again, special thanks to our association partners who prompted us and have been working with us. And so right now, we are structuring the messaging, the posters that will be in all the classrooms. Our goal is to sort of have a portfolio of posters that teachers can choose from that best fit what they want, all with the same message nonetheless, and have all of the infraction protocols clearly delineated and outlined, who's responsible for inputting the infraction language into queue, who's responsible for calling home, what happens on the second, third, fourth infraction. We just want to be very clear and upfront with parents and students about that. And that would be going out in the beginning of August with student handbooks, welcome back letters to parents, that sort of thing. So looking forward to include any feedback that you might have, and happy to answer any questions.
I appreciate you doing this and adding to this board policy. You know, cell phones have been around for a while now in schools. I had my first phone, I think, way back when, and they started, you know, I see it, I take it policy, right? You've seen those, and it's hard to get those kind of policies going and make sure that people continue that. Are they having such effect? I don't know. So I really feel that this policy is heading in the right direction. I appreciate that there's a concerted effort to have those different steps for administration. You know, I think a lot of teachers feel not supported a lot of times with the cell phone policy, just because it's something that's very low on the totem pole when it comes to you know, things that happen at a school site. So I feel like this is a really good effort, and I think it's great that we're making this a point this school year, and something for teachers to say, hey, this is the policy. Here's your steps. Show the students that, you know, if the infraction happens, this will happen, so on and so forth. And your parents agree with this. Your parents want this. So I think this is a wonderful start. I'll be interested to see what happens next year and the report from this. Thank you.
Actually have two things. So I just kind of zoomed in on the poster. And when I look at this poster, you are automatically drawn to pictures on posters first, but when I look at the poster, I don't see this as a cell phone poster, like, at all. Like, so when I look at it, I see the eyes and the ears, and then when I read it, I don't really even understand what you're talking about until I read the last line about remove your earbuds and cell phones. So I think maybe if we change the eyes and ears to cell phones and earbuds, I think the message would get across like sooner, right, when you look at it. Because when I look at it, I don't figure out that this is going to be about a cell phone policy at all. And so I'm glad technology is here. So 2 years ago, so I go to the CES almost every year. And 2 years ago, there was a company that developed a software. It's basically, in layman's terms, a cell phone jammer, but it's on a timer. So a lot of companies were having problems with people not paying attention in meetings. So what companies started doing is that they had a meeting for an hour. They turned on this software for an hour. So you cannot use any internet access for an hour, and it's time. So if you had, you know, this might be far-fetched, but way in the future, but you know, with Chat GPT becoming an issue and people using in the classroom, that technology is out there. And I'm not saying I'm advocating we get it or we don't get it, but I just want to make us aware that it's actually out there, so you can actually have it turned on for 50 minutes.
It's actually on Amazon. I'm looking at it right now.
So you can actually have it turned on for 50 minutes. Like, say the instructional period was 50 minutes, and people are worried about emergencies after the instructional period. It can actually turn off for 10 minutes and turn back on for 50 minutes. So that technology, I don't know if it's actually on Amazon because it's kind of expensive, but that's in the future. I'm sure the price is gonna.
It's within our budget, I believe, Hassan.
I'm sure the price is gonna come down, but that's just, you know, that technology is there. But that's my input on the poster itself. Is that I don't see, when I look at this, I don't see a cell phone poster.
I really appreciate that feedback, Trustee Peterson. And that's actually the first round of feedback that I provided our artist, and I think she did a really nice job of giving us the initial, what's the softest version? Because again, I sort of requested a range from, hey, lightly, sort of obliquely, very subtly, say, here's what we want to do, to a little more blunt. And this might be too far on the side of, to your point, what am I being asked to do here? So this is not what we're going with. These are just the first drafts of what I hope are 10 drafts that we as an executive team can look at and say, hey, here are the 5 that I think that really get the point across, that we want to put to teachers and say, one of these goes in your classroom, your choice.
And if I could just add to, although I completely agree, we need that spectrum of posters. One of the things too that you'll see in a lot of classrooms is the types of behaviors that we want as opposed to the types of behaviors that we don't. And so there's going to be that balance as it's age and developmentally appropriate. Like in our high school settings, you're going to see things that are probably a lot more blunt and a lot more to the point, as opposed to as we go a little bit younger, you may see that behavior that we're trying to create in our students, but as you know, balance is soft and direct.
I just want to commend you and our associations for trying to protect quality instructional time. It's so important that anything that distracts, like cell phones or earbuds. So I'm all in support of this, and thank you, and thank our associations for me, please.
Yeah, similarly, I love that we're doing this, I guess, and I shared this with Dr. Castro. One of my concerns is how do we support our staff in actually implementing this, because they will get, I mean, even if the majority of parents are in support of this, we know that not all parents will be in support of this, and not all students. In fact, probably the majority of students will not be in support of this. So how do we support them when they're getting those, you know, upsetting phone calls, emails, pushback, right, to make sure that we have policies in place so that they know that if they do these things, that we have their back, right? Because it is going to be an uncomfortable transition for some.
I think that's really well said, and that's one of the main concerns that we have discussed as an administrative team. Our goal is to support teachers. We ask them to make the most of their instructional time, and our job as administrators is to give them cover and to support them when they're doing the things that we ask. I'll give you an example of some of the things that we can all do. Pacific High School starts every classroom with a reminder, hey, welcome, glad you're here. Put away your cell phones, please, so we can start. So that's a respectful, I think, for young adults, that you start with that reminder, as opposed to wait for the infraction, then jump on the infraction, and then now you're creating a power struggle. I think you're absolutely right that the challenges will come in the margins, like, well, was your cell phone away? It was in your pocket? No, it wasn't. I saw you looking at it. That's where you're going to get the challenges with some upset parents. So you're right. And we are going to, it's not going to be perfect, but we're committed to trying to get there, because it's such an incursion on instructional time.
The other thing I would add is that in addition to being like having an impact on instructional time, I mean, what we know is that this generation is struggling so much to make personal connections, right? And so I think part of the conversation hopefully we can have with families is that, you know, we don't want your child to struggle with anxiety and depression and some of the self-isolating kind of behaviors that we see in so many teens that we know are linked directly to the hours they spend on cell phones, right? So kind of bringing families into that idea that for your child to have a healthier experience, I mean, ideally they learn a lot too, right? But like, if nothing else, at least maybe they won't be so anxious and struggle with some of the mental health issues that we know come directly from social social circumstances.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because I think that that's what I was trying to get at in that that last section of my fourth slide there, you did a much better job of getting at that. It really is about student well-being in addition to learning. So I think you're right. We have to be a little more bit clear with parents and with teachers about that. So thank you. That's good language.
Yes, I was just thinking about something. You know, sometimes when you have like onboarding issues, like you have someone that's been working here for 10 years and everybody that's working here for 10 years behave a certain way. And then you say you want to change that behavior. So you go to onboarding and you change onboarding to change the behavior. And when you were saying lighter to more stronger content as they get older, I was thinking maybe we should focus in the like 4th and 5th grade in that put your cell phones away, because if we start there, they're a little more, they listen to their teachers a little more in that grade, right? Mm-hmm. And if we started this year and said in 4th and 5th grade, the first thing we're going to say is, if you have a cell phone, they might not, but if we start training in 5th grade, they hear it. And then when they get to middle school, they hear it. And if we start onboarding them to start thinking about that right when they get to the classroom in the 5th grade, I think it'd be easier transition, because it's going to be hard to train to change our students right now. But if we start in the 5th grade, in 3 to 4 years from now, it will be something that they're used to doing, something that they're used to hearing. And I think if we look at it as an onboarding type of procedure, that we can make it easier transition. It might take us a little longer, but I think if we start there, I think it'll be easier in the future.
Perfect. That's extremely helpful. Thank you.
And then just lastly on the poster thing, Nicole did send me some of the other drafts, which were very funny, but maybe a little bit colorful for schools. So this is much more tolerable. One of them included a pickle, was very funny, but probably high school only. So, so anyway, I think there is a lot of range that could be covered with these things. So I'm sure we'll get there. Thank you. And thanks for the policy. 17A, report regarding Williams Uniform Complaint Procedures. This is our quarterly report. Ms. Wallowitz.
Thank you. We had no complaints to report for the quarter ending on June 30th.
Great, thank you. Jazz hands. Okay, that brings us to our consent calendar items. Items 18 through 22 are considered to be routine in nature. Is there any item on this that anyone would like to pull for a separate conversation? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt items 18 through 22?
So moved.
I second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
Yes.
And Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, that brings us to board reports. And I'll just confess now that because we have not done these the last few times, I did not prepare one. And I actually was thinking that in that vein of being a little more efficient with our time, I have on occasion written my report and just like meant to hand it to you and then not. So maybe we can start to move towards that direction, because then Ms. Dahm could include them as part of the public record, and it would just be there. I mean, you could always give a part of it verbally if you wanted to. But anyway, board reports, anyone?
I don't have a board report. I just wanted, for the record, when we did the Pledge of Allegiance, I didn't stand up, but I took my hat off. I just want the people that might be viewing this to know that I'm recovering from a knee surgery, and I did a lot of walking today, so it felt a little unstable, so that's why I didn't stand up, but I didn't want anybody to think that I was doing any type of protesting or anything. It was strictly because of pain. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention.
Okay, so that brings us to coming events.
And as the slide comes up, I'm just going to give our group that's here and the community a little bit of a break. Everything that's up there starts in August with the start of the school year. As excited as we are and as much planning as we are doing for the start of the school year, it's there if you are not clear about when everything starts in August. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of July and the rest of August.
Great, thank you. Future board items. Anyone?
Future, I don't know if this goes under future board items, but I know that we talked about putting our priorities and stuff, and I think, you know, before the new school year, I'd like to try to get on that so that when people come back to the new school year, we're going to be making a lot of changes, and I think doing those changes and visual impacts, I think people will come in here and it'll be an easier transition because they'll say, well, it looks different. They're doing stuff different. It must be different. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson. If we could delay that on a board item, we do have a comprehensive update that we can send via board memo. And since I don't want to jinx anything, but it appears that we may end a little bit earlier. We have some, do you still have them down here? Okay, posters that we have to get some insight, but I do want to share, just to be responsive to the question, Marianne is going to share what the process is that we're in, and it's pretty comprehensive. So Marianne, if you can just briefly go over that, and we'll put all the rest in the board report.
Sure. So at this point, we are going to be putting in a request to have this room painted before we put anything on the walls. They need to be painted. And we are taking into consideration some conversations that I've had with CAPS Media and with VASE with regard to needing to find the types of vinyl decals that are matte related so that when we do have them on camera, they look nice. In addition, we have very long mission statements, very long vision statements, and very long priorities, thank you, as well as a civility statement that we wanted to put on the wall. So I have various places that we're looking at doing those around the room, but we really need to determine if we can put it all out there, given that they are paragraphs and paragraphs in some cases. But I don't know if you want to move forward with, okay.
I have a quick question about a future board item. Is there any point that we, as a board, get together, discuss maybe the CASP results or any type of testing? Okay. When does that typically happen?
According to our board governance calendar, it is in October.
So I had a couple of things, and I think maybe it's just that we had some things that were on here on future board items, but because they're kind of scheduled-ish, they're not still on here, so I think it would just be helpful to have them continually listed. So we have the PLA that's, we're going to do a board study session on, we've talked about having a conversation around our agenda and some of our meeting structures. And then also, we talked earlier today about a board discussion around properties, a sort of visioning board, either study session or special meeting. So I think it would just be helpful to have some of those things listed, so just so we know that they haven't been forgotten.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. Just to be consistent with our internal processes, we can bring forward the PLA because that's been ongoing, even if it's a TBD. We had consensus on that. The meeting structures we had previously consensus on. The last item, which was the property visioning, is that, I imagine that we'd have consensus on that, but if I can see some nods of heads that, okay, great. And then we can talk about the format for that. Thank you.
So we talked about it in our property committee that, this board has not had a conversation around the properties, and so it would be helpful to have a board-wide conversation about those things. Okay, great, thank you.
Well, just so I can understand what you were saying, you're saying like where it says future board items to list what they are, and can we? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If we can also add the date, because sometimes when you look at this and you'd be like, oh, that is coming up on, that would be, for me, it'd be really helpful.
Yes, we typically, when we know that there's a date or have a reasonable certainty that there's a date, we will, but otherwise we will have it like pending or TBD. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Great, thank you. Board superintendent comments.
Just a comment on the calendar that we just adopted. I want to make sure that we emphasize it's not this year's calendar. It's next year's, because, you know, we're going to receive a bunch of emails and calls as soon as the year starts.
Well, I would just like to say that these last 3-4 meetings, to me, we've made so much progress. Not that you guys weren't doing your job before. I want to make that very clear. I think what we're doing now is that we're focusing on the things that we think we can impact, and so I'm feeling much better about it because you guys have so much information and so many things that you're responsible for doing, and some of those we don't actually have an impact on. And in the past, we spoke about them, but there was no decision here. We're just kind of downloading information or FYI. But I think now the board meetings, you guys are kind of narrowing in on what you think that we can make impacts on. And I feel now the meetings, I feel more accomplished after the meeting, because before I just felt like I was listening to a lot of stuff. But now I feel like I'm getting information that I can make decisions on. So I'm just saying I'm very happy about that. But I just want to emphasize, it's not that you weren't doing your job before. You're doing it better now. Is that okay? Is that okay to say that? Okay. All right, good. I was kind of digging a hole for a minute. I even heard myself. I was like, oh, man, you got to do something. Okay.
So I just wanted to say thank you to all the staff who are working this summer, because I know not only the people in this building, but a whole lot of our site staff, after a very difficult couple of years, are still there, whether it's for summer school or ELOP, continuing to serve our students and their families, and just really appreciate their willingness to do that during the summer. And I hope that they are having a different time, that it's not just like the regular part of school. So thank you.
You know, I'll just add, I want to, as we've continued to say, thank you to the board for giving us the direction that allows us to really consolidate the types of presentations that we give and the types of input that we know that you want. That helps us tremendously to know what our expectations are and to really streamline our conversations, because then we start to think alike and then we don't have to meet all the time. We just know what the expectation is, and that in itself creates a lot of efficiencies and energy. So thank you for your continued feedback and guidance.
Great. So I don't know who had the 9:42 poll, but 8:42. But there is no need for us to return to closed session. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Vote as follows. Trustee Forsythe?
Yes.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes.
Trustee Dannenberg?
No.
Is
Yes.
that your real vote? Trustee Rodriguez? Okay, it passed.
And 3-1. And in a I think perhaps almost a record, 8:42, we are adjourned.
Good job, board.